Welcome to another episode. In this one, I'll be discussing about the recent trends in the information technology or computer science, which is the generative AI. Generative AI meaning the generative artificial intelligence. We have heard about ChatGPT bot from Google as well. So what is it's all about? How does it work? So to understand that better, we will first need to understand what is an AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. Artificial intelligence is not something new which has come up in recent time. It is there more than for 30 years. Even in those days, when in the college days, there was used to be talk about the artificial intelligence. So what they would ideally do is they would take it up as a project and they will try to replace a doctor. For that, they will give up to that AI program. They will give up different symptoms of a disease and ask the computer program to identify which disease is it. Say for example, like if you're having a cold and headache with a temperature, it will recognize as some kind of a malarial disease, and these days it could be COVID as well. So they will give the symptoms and ask the computer program to recognize what it is. So that was termed as a AI in about 20-30 years back. Now it is getting redefined as well, much more, because of the computing power the computer has, the memory has. It's all now 100 times or even 1000 times more computing power one has in the system. Those days it was not like that, but now we have. So if you, in a nutshell, the artificial intelligence is a discipline itself, whereas machine learning is a subset of that. So machine learning, of course, we are hearing more and more in recent time, machine learning. So the focus is on machine learning in the last few years. About 5 years is what I would say. We are hearing about what is machine learning. So even the ChatGPT is kind of a machine learning exercise. So we will see why we call it as a machine learning that we need to understand in this presentation. So for that, we'll take an analogy. So if we ask them what this is, I mean, if you ask first, if you ask a man, it is far more easier. It's not going to be difficult. But if you ask a 5-year-old kid, he will probably just notice it for a few seconds, and then he will say it is a dog. Whereas a man, yes, even a 10-year-old will say it is a. He'll start classifying what kind of a dog it is. It is a pug. He will say, but whereas a 5-year-old might not say that it is a pug, because he might not have seen a pug at all. He might have seen a dog, but if he has not seen a pug, he will not be able to say it. So how is that a 10-year-old or anyone about 10-year-old is able to say it is a pug? So this is based on a kind of an impression created of seeing the breed. He is able to register it. And similarly, this is what happens in the machine learning as well. So it creates some impressions are known as models. It creates a model for it, and once you create a model, it is easy to identify whether it is a dog or if it is a cat. Once it recognizes that particular model, that is what happens in the machine learning as well. It recognizes as a model, and post that model is recognized, and you give further details or further inputs. Because there is already model identified, an impression is done by the computer, it is far more easier for it to recognize. So that's what it happens. So if you look at it from a computer perspective, that is what we have programming, and in case there is also machine learning. In case of programming, you give a program and then you give a data, maybe as simple as that, whether the number is a even number or a odd number. You have a simple program, so to identify whether and then you feed it with the data which is divisible, something like you generate a program divisible by 2. If it is not divisible by 2, then you'll say it's an odd number. If it is divisible by 2, then it's an even, as simple as that. But programs can be complex. But whereas in a machine learning, data is fed into the computer program, just like to say that it's a dog or a cat or whatever it is. So a model is generated, and once the model is generated, post that you give the model, it's kind of a logical program. Post creating a model, you feed with an input, it will able to recognize whether it's a cat or a dog. So that's what happens in the supervised learning. To identify, assess the model is provided with multiple images of dog. So basically, these are called, in supervised learning, these are called the label data, and the learning algorithm learns it, and then it creates a model. And post that, if you give any input to this model, it'll say it's a dog. So that's what has happened. It is able to identify a particular image. So this is called as a supervised learning. There is something called unsupervised learning, where it should cluster, because you are not going to create a model, but you will create a kind of a cluster in case of an unsupervised learning. Particularly, for example, buying behavior based on the income. If the income is high, they might procure a more highly costly objects, or what should I say, computers. Take for example computers. A person who is buying Apple because it is or iPhone, if you look at their income group, it might be much higher than who are going to get an Android phone. So there are exceptions, but generally high income group goes for a iPhone or Apple Mac, and person with a much more lower income could go for an Android phone or a laptop, an ordinary laptop, Windows based laptop. Yes, there are going to be exception, and that's where concept of clustering happens and unsupervised learning happens. So it makes a cluster, and to the cluster, if you feed the data, generally it will say this person, because he's going to have a high income group, he might purchase a Mac or an iPhone, and then it will push on the advertisement for that. So this is an unsupervised learning, and almost similar concept happens in the generative AI as well. In case of discriminative, it will able to classify this one, or even predict in the sense whether it's a dog or if it is pug. It is able to make a discriminative one. Whereas in the generative one, it needs to generate. That's what happens in ChatGPT, because there are so much of volume of data out there. Based on the information available, it needs to generate. For example, if you're going to take any programming language, it generates. ChatGPT is able to generate the program because it knows the syntax. It has learned the syntax of the programming language. It gives an output. So that is the generative AI. So if you look at it, discriminative technique, it will classify, and it will classify as a dog. Whereas in the generative techniques, you are asking just instead of a dog, you say any programming language you want. It can do a SQL program or a Java based program. It can even generate a Python program, because it has got from the various sources. It has got the syntax for the programming language. So it is going to generate the programming language itself. So instead of generating a dog image, it is going to generate the respective program itself. So that is what any of the ChatGPT is going to do, and that is why it is called as the generative AI. I hope you now have a clarity how the generative AI works. I hope you found this presentation useful. Do subscribe to my channel. Thank you.